Shalom, shalom, shalom. All praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, which is to say in the Paleo Hebrew, Yahweh, which is the name of our Heavenly Father, meaning He is, and that is who the world ignorantly calls God. Bahashem, which means in the name in the Paleo Hebrew. Yahweh Shai, which means He is our salvation. And that is who the world also ignorantly calls Jesus a so-called black man, who, by the way, only came for the Israelites, all right? Now, as I was scrolling through TikTok, I came across a feed, and although it's new in the sense, it's old because the feed was that this Edomite by the name of David Rockefeller had 6 or 7 heart transplants to extend his life to be 101 years old before he croaked, okay? Now, from all sources that I tried to do research on, this couldn't be substantiated whether or not it was true. So they labeled it as false, but still, nevertheless, we can extrapolate from that and get a precept or two out of it. So I Googled, did David Rockefeller have multiple or 7 heart transplants? And the AI overview, of course, even if he did have them, wouldn't put that out on line for it to be ran with, okay? Because after you see a picture of this demon, of this devil, you can see something was in the mix because it doesn't look like he kept up with his health that well. And it doesn't look like, outside of having some type of, ritual or something like that, he isn't in the best shape to live to be 101 years old. Because understand, these elites and the Rockefellers or the Rockefeller are part of the elite society of that oligarchy. They have privy or knowledge to things that we don't have, okay? So back to the AI overview, it says, no, the persistent rumor that David Rockefeller had multiple heart transplants, quotation, often cited as 6 or 7, is false, right? So of course they're not going to tell us what he had, if he had 6 or 7, or if he had something else to prolong his life. They're not going to tell us that. They're going to just say that it's a rumor, it's false. But we know these elites, they have knowledge to things that we don't have, all right? It says, it originated from satirical fake news and urban legends, not reality, though he did live to be 101 years old, leading to many myths about his longevity, okay? Now, let's just take a look at some of the images of this devil. Here you have him right here. You can see clearly that he didn't keep up in his latter years as one that would be expected to live to be 101 years old. All right. So we know there was something behind closed doors that, they were practicing to keep this devil alive. Because why? They want to see their enterprise come to fruition. And he was all with the one world order, or the new world order, should I say, and chipping people. Okay. But he didn't get to see it. Okay. I mean, come on. This is him back in, what is this? It looks like to be September the 2nd, 2010. They're saying that this is satirical or satire, fake news, okay? So just giving you a glimpse to show, who this guy is, all right? He's one of the Rockefellers, all right? One of these elites, okay? And whether or not he had the 6 or 7 transplants, you can almost take it to the house that he was doing some type of rituals to keep, what he believed to be his longevity alive, all right? So let's go and get a few precepts, okay, of this guy, David Rockefeller, this Edomite. This is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 8, and let's read the KJV, King James Version, to the left, and to the right, or the parallel version, is the NLT. So it says, though a sinner do evil 100 times, and his days be prolonged. See? And you can bet, as was quoted earlier, that they're doing practices or rituals behind closed doors that's contrary to what the word says, okay? Because why? They worship Satan on the left-hand side, all right? This is where they believe they get their longevity, their spiritual powers, or whatever else by worshiping Satan, all right? Spiritual demon Satan, all right? They do these sacrifices and what have you. That's what Eyes Wide Shut was going all into. So it says, though a sinner do evil 100 times, and his days be prolonged. See? So they do these rituals, okay, that you'll never see, publicized on the internet, but you have people like insiders like Alex Jones who allegedly snuck into Skull and Bones and, caught him doing all type of stuff in there. All right? It says, though a sinner do evil 100 times and his days be prolonged, yet surely I know that it shall be well with them that fear the Most High, which fear before him. Right? So this is why we are commanded not to be of this world, okay? That's why it tells us, be not of this world, but be ye what? Renewed by the transformation of your mind, all right? Because this world is heavily rooted in wickedness. Because why? The so-called white man, Esau, Edom, is in power, all right? And under his vibration, he has set this world on his side. So we have to be renewed by the transforming of our mind. Matter of fact, let's get that in Romans 12, okay? This is Romans 12 and verse 2. It says, and be not conformed to this world, because we understand that the power of this world is Satan, okay? It says, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And how do you renew your mind? By understanding these scriptures, understanding the word, okay? It says, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of the Most High. See? So this is why we're not to be of this world, all right? Because it's heavily rooted in all type of demonic ritual, Satan rituals, and it's under this Edomite, all right? Esau and David Rockefeller, along with the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the what's another one? The Oppenheimer, you name it. Those are all Edomites, man. So now we go back and finish up in Ecclesiastes chapter 8 and verse 12. It says, though a sinner do what? Let's read it. Though a sinner do evil 100 times and his days be prolonged, yet surely I know that it shall be well with them that fear the Most High, right? Because why? They've renewed their mind, all right? They put off that old man, okay? And we're not part of this world anymore. It says, Yet surely I know that it shall be well with them that fear the Most High, which fear before him. Now let's read this in the NLT to the right. But even though a person sins 100 times and still lives a long time, right? And that devil lived to be 101, all right? And people would think to themselves, well, man, he must have really did something, worthy for the Lord to allow him to live that long. No, you see? Because the Lord, as it says, he makes it rain on the just and the unjust. Okay? So it says in the NOT, but even though a person sins 100 times and still lives a long time, I know that those who fear the Most High will be better off. See? So you can have all your, riches and your quote unquote longevity or whatever else you're doing to obtain that on this side, you can have it. All right. Because we're more concerned about immortality. See, we're concerned about the everlasting kingdom, okay, which is only promised to the Israelites, the so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans. See, Esau, Edom, he has to worry about how can he prolong his days on this side. Can I put myself in a what's that thing called, a cryo chamber? Where you can freeze yourself and have it preserved and thaw out for a later time, like they would say, quote unquote, Walt Disney is in a cryo chamber. You know, but everything is false or allegedly because you won't have the information to prove otherwise. But we know these Edomites, they can't obtain immortality because why? It wasn't given to them. All right. So verse 13 in the KJV, but it shall not be well with the wicked. Who is the wicked? Job 9 and 24. The earth is given unto the hand of the wicked. That's Esau, all right? The so-called white man, so you can know. It says, verse 13, but it shall not be well with the wicked, neither shall he prolong his days, right? Because immortality wasn't given to him. Immortality was only promised to the Israelites. It says, neither shall he prolong his days, which are as a shadow, because he feareth not before the Most High. See? So they all got to come to an end one way or another, all right? And that's just the end of the story, man. These heathens, these other nations, they don't have that promise of glory. They're not going to be immortals. They're not going to live forever. That's only for the Israelites, okay? So whatever they doing or quote unquote, according to AI overview, not doing to stay afloat to reach 100 and something years old, it's temporarily, okay? Because you got some Jakes, allegedly that lived to be 100 and something years old. I can think of one that he was in the army or one part of the military branch and he, smoked cigars every day. He said that was his key to living long. But, you got to take these people at their words, man, because there's no real dates to substantiate their birth dates, okay? To be over 100 and something years old. Well, it is what it is, but the point of it is that only the Israelites are going to actually have that immortality that these damn Edomites trying to obtain on this side. And they won't see their enterprise come to pass. I mean, they won't see their enterprise take off like they wanted to. They're going to get it to the point where they can get the microchip up and running, but after that, that's it. Okay? So let's not make this too much more longer. Let's finish up and close out. And let's go to 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8. And it reads, be sober, be vigilant. Why? Because your adversary, the devil, see? Yes, that same one. The one that is deceiving the world. It says, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. Right. And a lot of these jakes, they go into these industries, and these devils, these Edomites, they promise them the world, man. All right. They get Jake in compromisable positions, and then they can, blackmail them at a later time, man. Because why? They didn't transform, or they didn't renew their mind by the transforming of this word. All right. That's why it says, for many are called, but few are chosen. Only the elect is going to take heed to this word. All right. And especially in the times that we in now. All right. So let's read this one more time and then we'll be out. This is 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8. It reads, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. All right. So with that being said, pray someone was edified through this lesson. And until the next time, if it be the Lord's will, stay strong, stay in the faith. We're almost home. Shalom. Peace.